For the first 6 months of my business, I was paying people through Cash App because I got my payroll account locked.
You need two things. One, who, not how. You need to find a who, and then you need to not be scared of the answer. If you want $100,000 problems, get a $100,000 job. If you want $1 million problems, find $1 million, $10 million problems to solve.
It's not going to be the end of the world. It's a minor inconvenience.
Why does it have to be linear? Why can I not jump? In special ops, we think outside the box. If there is no box, we create the box, and then we think outside of that box.
The most important factor into being successful is the adversity through challenges. Just doing it, taking action, failing, learning how to do it better, continuing to drive on, finding a way to just keep going when it sucks. There comes a point where you need to start to build the road in front of you. Ryan, earlier today, you told me about something you're going through with QuickBooks. You got off the phone with QuickBooks and you had to deal with them filing duplicate W-2 tax reports. And just kind of a reminder, like when we used to sit down for lunch, but even before this podcast was an idea, we would go through these things and just like a brainstorming session. And there's a lot of stuff that I've learned through my business that if I was to tell my past self, like be one of those unknown unknowns, like dealing with fuel cards, or for example, the thing I learned last week was trying to get a rental car for my driver because I needed him to go pick up the truck. Because he was leaving the state, I couldn't use my debit card, and I don't have credit cards. I don't do credit cards. So even though I was trying to put a $400 deposit on the vehicle, they wouldn't let me use a debit card. Well, when I talked to my business coach, and he told me, well, the workaround for that is you go through PayPal and then have PayPal use your PayPal account to rent the vehicle. Then you can rent the car with a debit card. Wouldn't even have thought of that. And so you brought up this thing. So I wanted to talk to you about some of these new solutions that we're finding for problems that we didn't even know we had. And you want to start with the QuickBooks thing?
Yeah, so what happened was because I bought the company mid-year. So I bought it in May. And we were paying a local company, or we pay a local company to do all our sales tax, to do our payroll tax and all that. Well, they don't do our payroll tax anymore, but we also pay QuickBooks to do QuickBooks does our payroll taxes, and we didn't know, but they filed all our W-2s for all our employees. So we got like 24 W-2s that they filed. Well, this local company that we use, they did the same thing. So now, say we have an employee that makes $50,000. They got double filings. So they got two $50,000 W-2s saying they make $100,000. So now their taxes are be double in theory. So how do you fix that?
I mean, my initial reaction would be to just go cancel one of them and tell one of them to void it.
But they're already at the IRS. So how do you do that? And so we had to call QuickBooks. I don't know the answer. So we call well, let me rephrase that. I'm a fan of the who, not how, because I don't know how to do a lot of this. But so I had my office manager call QuickBooks this morning, and she called. She said, "Hey, I opened this file thing," but even though I tried to give her as much rights as could, she didn't own the account. So then I had to call QuickBooks and get on the phone and authorize it, and it turned into a 30-minute conversation because what we wanted them to do was just cancel it. But because it was already filed with the IRS, we couldn't cancel it. We have to send an amendment out, amending it down to 0. And so it just turned into a pain, but I don't know how to do it. I think it goes back to your point. Like, I don't think you have to know how to do everything in business. You need two things. One, I reference who, not how. You need to find a who. And then also, you need to not be scared of the answer. And
scared of not knowing the answer.
Well, yeah, but I guess what I'm getting to is, we've talked about this. I'm trying to think of the exact terminology. But if you want $100,000 problems, get a $100,000 job. If you want $1 million problems, find $1 million problems to solve, and $10 million or whatever. So this is just a problem that needs to be solved, and you can't be stressed about it, I guess. I don't know if I'm doing a good explanation of it, but
Yeah, and I mean, I think most of the problems are figure outable. I don't have a better word for it. It's like it's not going to be the end of the world. It's a minor inconvenience. Like when I first bought the trucking company and I took in investment capital and I used my QuickBooks payments portal to process that money through, but because of the way that I coded it in QuickBooks, it looked like I was giving out loans. Like I coded it wrong. It looked like I was giving out loans through QuickBooks, and QuickBooks doesn't allow that. So they shut it down, which restricted my ability to accept payments through QuickBooks and my ability to do payroll through QuickBooks. So then I had to go find other systems. I wound up landing on Gusto because I looked into Paychecks, excuse me, Paychecks, and a few other platforms. Paychecks was just a little bit more advanced. It's Paychex, I think. And I mean, they're all in one. They handle all the payroll, all the filings, everything like that. But they were just for companies slightly bigger than where I'm at. And Gusto was more of like kind of the intro solo entrepreneur platform. So, but it's a problem that I didn't even know I had. I thought just people do work, I pay them. Like it's not a big deal. But for the first 6 months of my business, I was paying people through Cash App because I got my payroll account locked out. So those kinds of things. And so one thing I want to ask you is I am terrible at bookkeeping. I use QuickBooks Online for multiple businesses. I think 4 or 5 businesses, all separate. We just hired an independent CPA to come out and audit our books for a couple of the businesses. And she said, well, with how many different entities you guys have and all the different management stuff that you do, you really should not be on QuickBooks Online. You should be on QuickBooks Desktop. And my CPA said that keep it simple, QuickBooks Online makes more sense. But I'm paying like $75 per entity per month for QuickBooks Online. So I mean, with obviously you have one business, but what have you found as far as the platforms, and is it something we grow into? Because it seems like they kind of have a monopoly over the business bookkeeping.
yeah, I mean, QuickBooks is the easy solution. So my mom worked for a public accounting firm back home, and when I told her QuickBooks Online, like she absolutely like, if you do that, you're the biggest idiot in the world. Um, she hated it. She's used it like she's helped me. I used to, when I first bought Macintosh, I called it Finance Friday, and I just sat there and did a whole bunch of stuff, and I couldn't figure out a lot of stuff with QuickBooks or just accounting in general.
Mhm.
And so I would call my mom, and she would walk me through it. But QuickBooks has gone so far. Like I feel like she was like, "Oh, this isn't as bad as I thought." But she quit when she quit working, 2018. So she hasn't done taxes publicly in 5 years or whatever it had been. So things have changed with QuickBooks Online. My point of saying all that is I think it is subjective to the person. My mom would tell you, don't ever use QuickBooks Online. I talked to her accountant, her CPA, that does her stuff now, and his name's Trey. Trey told me, he's like, it doesn't matter. So I think it's personality driven
Hmm.
more than anything would be my answer for QuickBooks. But yes, I do think QuickBooks has a monopoly, but it's it's a monopoly because no one else has cracked the nut.
Hmm.
So
It's like U-Haul. Like I've thought of so many different ways I would love to take down U-Haul. Not because they're bad company or anything. I just think that they have no real competitors. Like Penske is more business to business. They do offer consumer products, but their pricing is much higher. U-Haul has a model that cannot be beat. Like I think that they're indestructible, and I would love to figure out a way because that's my billion-dollar idea. But I can't figure it out. I don't think there's a better
I
one.
mean, people complain about Apple phones. I mean, I got a tablet right here, Apple tablet. I got an Apple phone, or it's Apple computer. But why is that? Because people like the simplicity of like Apple just made it simple, and so people complain about the monopoly, but beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and remember we had a previous conversation about, you were telling me your goals of your revenue and your EBITDA goals, and talking about arrogance. Well, I had my opportunity to speak in my men's group last week, and we sit in the room 4 hours, present problem, they ask drawing questions, and so for me it was about staffing and about removing myself from the day-to-day business and being able to operate, at a higher level. And they asked, so what is your goal to basically hire out until you can truly be high level? And I told them, well, by the end of calendar year 26, I want 5 more trucks, and which would more than double my size, and be able to hire a dispatcher and an office manager. And um, so one of the guys in my group who's an accountant, he said, so do you know anyone who's done that? I said, well, no, the trucking industry is very niche specific. And so the way I want to grow is different from how I've seen a lot of people. And he's like, no, I mean, in business in general, have you ever seen anyone scale that fast? I said, no one comes to mind. He's like, me either. And I have 1,000 clients. And I was like, oh my gosh. And he came back and was like, I just realized that came off a little harsh. I didn't mean it like that. I was like, nope. I said, the Lord spoke to me the way that I needed to. But
So I guess unpack that. Like, I would say that yes, there's people that have done that. I can. In his latest book, we talk about. I just mentioned Who Not How, but Dr.
Dan
Benjamin
Stoll?
Harden.
No, Henry Hardy.
In his newest book, the Science of Scaling, I think it is. He wrote it independent, but it's basically the sequel to 10x is easier than 2x that he did with Sullivan. But that's exactly what he talks about, exactly what you said right there about people think business has to be linear. Why? Why does it have to be linear? Why can I not jump?
So I know. This side note, Benjamin Hardy is far more educated than I will ever be. But one thing I've always noticed is if you listen to audiobooks, he doesn't say linear. He says linear. And it's always bothered me. And it's probably the right way to say it, but it bothers me. Anyways, yeah, I mean, we also talked about the Dana White and the mentality of like, I need you to doubt me, because that's where I'd get the motivation from. It definitely, I'm kind of like, I want to prove you wrong, because even if I fall short and I only get 4 trucks, like, I'm still going to be doing better off than I'm at right now. But the slice of humble pie is the reality check of, you need to understand exactly how hard that is. It's not just I do the steps and I'm going to grow by this much. It's like it's going to take some serious effort outside of the normal day to day. And Alex Ramosi talks about it. Like, when you're starting business, keep working your 9 to 5. Your 9 to 5 is your working time, and then 5 to 9 is you're working on your business or on yourself. And so the way I see it is, if I'm working on in the trucking company from, granted we work 14, 16-hour days, then that's the time working in the business. I need to also allocate time to work on it to scale until I can get to the point where my 9 to 5 can be just working on the business. So it's just kind of, like I said, the reality check of, you got to be ready to step it up and do things outside of what you're already doing to get to that level.
I agree. And to the point of that guy saying that to you, most people don't do it because it is thinking outside the box. And I'll give a prime example. So I was in a special ops unit, and I had a commander, probably seen him on TV, and he had a quote, and it said, in special ops, we think outside the box. If there is no box, we create the box, and then we think outside of that box.
I like that.
And that's what business is what that guy's telling you is in the box thinking. I'm saying think outside the box. And if there is no box that you want to live in, create the box and then start thinking outside of that box. And that's the only way that you can scale to those insane numbers.
What was the movie or the show Prison Break? Did you ever watch that?
It sounds familiar,
I
but
can't
is that the dude with long hair or something like that?
No, he's pretty close to bald. I can't remember his name. He's not my favorite actor, but he has a line of like, create the plan. It was like, create the plan, memorize the plan, throw the plan away and then create another plan, or then ditch the plan or something like that. And so I feel like that's a lot of what business is. It's like, I have this plan is I'm gonna buy this truck, and then by the end of the year I'm gonna have 3 trucks, and then by the end of that year I'm gonna have 7 trucks, and then I'm gonna scale and do these things. And then when you get into the day to day, Mike Owen used this example of it's like you could set course in your little rowboat and you go out to sea and you start rowing, and then you get spun around and now you have no idea what's left, what's right. He's like, now try doing that while there's a hole in your boat and you're just trying to stay above the water. It's like, that's the reality of business. And having other people to bounce things off of, like, and I know we're a member of multiple masterminds, just being able to get different opinions. There's people in our one of the masterminds that are in logistics, synergistic industries where they deal with similar type problems. And so hearing how they actually deal with those problems helps me in different ways. So I think just the community and the networking and stuff, it helps to bounce things off of, because when you and I sit and have coffee, we're limited by our experiences, and there's not a lot of crossover between plumbing and trucking. There's not a lot of crossover between real estate and trucking and plumbing. So having people with such diverse outlooks helps immensely.
Well, I think at the end of the day, it comes back to education. Like, I don't know how to do this, but I've seen this guy do this one thing, kind of, sort of. Let me see if I can utilize that. Or, whatever it is. Like, I had a conversation with my marketing person yesterday, and I was talking about bouncing ideas off from different AI models. Like, don't just use ChatGPT. Use Gemini and ask the same question in ChatGPT that you asked in Gemini, and then have them argue with one another. I'm like, oh, this is what Gemini told me. This is what ChatGPT told me. And it's about asking the questions. And like, I set up my ChatGPT, I said, do not be agreeable with me. Like, play the devil's advocate. Like, I'll specifically say, hey, I don't want you to agree with me. Tell me where I'm missing something. And it's
Blind spots, what I say all the time.
yeah,
Tell me
like,
my blind spots.
how do you figure these things out? And with technology, what it is today, and like, AI could ruin the world. I don't know where it's going. I'm not that futuristic. But how can I use it today to answer these blind spots that I have about the company? Like, 8 months ago, I didn't own a plumbing company. But I'll say this, and I say this humbly, but in the last 6 months of last year, we did what our revenue was in 2024. Like, the company has grown that much. Our goal this year is to grow 90%. Like, I mean, that was what you kind of laughed at me a few weeks ago, that you referenced a little bit there.
Well, let's bring back that conversation of where it came from. Is because you were sharing your revenue goals, and if you're comfortable talking about thresholds, what I said is I'm very excited to see how you break those barriers, because there's different problems at $1 million gross revenue as there is from $5 million gross revenue and $10 million gross revenue, and there's multiple mini thresholds in between that. But as soon as you break through that ceiling, you had to accomplish something different, whether it's scaling your management team at 5 million gross and at 10 million gross, you need to bring in a world-class operator. Like, there are so many different problems.
Yeah, and I will give a shout out to Alex Ramosi. You mentioned him, but he has this. He preaches a lot, like the 10 frameworks of different sized businesses. So he's laid a lot of this out. Like, you have to give him your email, but he'll literally tell you, like, you answer all these questions, and he'll say, you're at this stage. This is what you should have got done. This is where you need to go to get to the next one. And it's all to build. I mean, he's trying to get deal flow for himself. There's a reason for it, but
well, he's honest about that in his book too. In all his books, he says, like, and granted, his criteria has changed, but he says, my goal is to give you this free information so that you can scale to 1 million gross, or now it might be 1 million net, so that I can invest in your business and you can make me money. Like, he's very open and honest about that.
Yeah, I mean, he has my email or my phone number and all that stuff, and his team's reached out to me about going to Vegas and sitting down with him in a 2-day workshop or whatever it was. And I think the reason is like they ask you what your revenue is, and so they see that. So we're too small. We're below. It's $1 million now. Like we're below $1 million net. But I think we're close enough that he's like, I can help you. If you come to this 2-day workshop, I can give you enough stuff to get over that $1 million threshold.
Hmm.
And now you're having a rapport with me. We're like, oh, he helped me get over $1 million net. And now he's willing to invest in the company, or like from a private equity standpoint.
I like Alex Ramosi, so I'm not to come off in the wrong context, but it almost it's like when you see companies. I think Neurogum is one of the ones. They went to Shark Tank and they had maybe I think they had like a million or two in sales, and Mark Cuban offered to buy the company for $5 million or something like that, and they said nah, no.
Two
And
and a half times sales he offered about.
I think or maybe it was 50 million. It was something. It was a ridiculous offer. I think it was a lot more, but I'd have to look back at the
Well, I
video.
mean, 2.5 times sales is ridiculous because you could sell $5 million worth of stuff and make zero profit.
Yeah,
So
either way, it was ridiculous. No, whether it was 50 million or 5 million, it was still a lot more than the company should have been valued at. But they had a good idea. But they said no, and they've turned that into a 9-figure, maybe 10-figure business. And I think that their vision for what was possible was so much bigger. Alex Ramosi targets the people who, like, our vision is how do I net $1 million? And then if you're netting $1 million, how do I net $2 million? And Alex Ramosi's like, I'm gonna get you to net 10. And so I can help you get there. And I think that's what's good about his business model is he's bringing people who maybe are small minded and think, and not that it's not a lot of money, but think that grossing a million is incredible. And he's like, I'm gonna get you to gross 30 million.
yeah, I just unpacking all this in my head. So I do think it comes back to the room that you're in. Before we started recording this, we were talking about like what's the most important thing: masterminding, education, whatever. And I would make the argument that masterminding is, for one, you get networking, you can learn, and for me, it's been getting in rooms with people doing so much larger than that. Like,
Well, and getting into rooms with people who are willing to bet $10,000, $20,000 on the networking.
oh yeah, yeah. So like I have, like, by getting in other rooms, like Carlos Reyes, like I met him, he gave me a cell phone number. Ryan Pineda, I have a cell phone number. Brad Lee, I have a cell phone number. Like these are people that I've met, had one-on-one conversations with, and like, hey, here's my if you need anything or whatever. Brad, it's like, hey, this would, if you want to be on podcast or whatever, this is what we do, how we do. Like it was all getting in the rooms with them, seeing what they're doing, and just by getting in the room with them and having that contact with them, it just teaches you that there's so much more that you can do.
Hmm.
And it just opens up your aperture to all that.
Because it humanizes them. And that's one thing that my wife is way better at than I am, is that she doesn't get starstruck, like, at all. She worked in Hawaii, all the biggest celebrities vacation in Hawaii. She probably served drinks to them, and you can't be starstruck. Oh, can I take a picture with you? And it's just very, oh, how are you doing, Mr. Sandler? It's just normal everyday conversation. And I feel like, granted, no celebrities are really vacationing in New Hampshire, so I wasn't exposed to it, but it's something that I've learned just through osmosis of being, with her. Um, but all these people, they're at the end of the day, they're just people, and seeing when you meet them and talk to them and see, like Ed Milet, meeting Ed Milet at an event, that was super cool, but only because I've known him from years of YouTube and watching him on these things and putting, being able to actually just talk to someone like that humanizes what's possible.
Yeah, I agree. And it is getting in the rooms and growing and networking and like just knowing that it's possible. Like I would have never. Bradley talks about one day becoming a billionaire. Like just open and it's like, oh yeah, I think I can get there. And just having that one-on-one interaction with somebody, um, that says it like not out of arrogance, not out of um, insert negative trending word
Hmm.
there, but it's just matter of fact, like, yes, this is very doable.
Hmm.
But you mentioned pictures. That's one thing I I absolutely hate doing is
Yeah.
taking pictures, but it's like a necessary evil in the world today. Like
Hmm.
I remember, I was in Hawaii and I was at Brandon Turner's event. I had never met him before, never talked to him, and I was there. I was having lunch with it was me, Valerie, and Jeff and Megan Ahern, and Valerie said something about like I had been there's like our second day there at the event, third day, something like we'd been there for a while. And like that I never talked to Brandon. And they were like, what? Like everybody goes up, talks to Brandon, takes a picture with Brandon. I'm like I got no reason. Like I don't have like a reason to meet him. Like I don't want to be a fanboy. Like
Hmm.
and so but they insisted that they introduced me to Brandon because I mean Jeff and Megan are friends with Brandon. So
Hmm.
they introduced me to him or whatever. But so I went from that, and then when I met Bradley, like I took a picture with Bradley and my lad, like you just mentioned him. Like I've taken pictures with them, and I guess my viewpoint on it has changed a little bit. Funny enough, more for the social media aspect of anything, which almost makes me feel fake. In the same token, like I'm only taking this for social media. So
Mm.
I just went off. I just pulled a Tanner and went off on a tangent
I
there.
get it. I get it. I mean, it's easy to do, but I think the biggest power of masterminds too is hearing things that didn't work. And one of the masterminds we're in, they talk about that. Like, don't just preach from a pedestal if you don't have the experience. Like, if you had the experience, share what you tried that worked and share what you tried that didn't work. And there, I saw an ad for, I think it was Landman or something like that. And they have, oh gosh, who's that? I can't remember who the old guy is, but playing Billy Bob Thornton's dad in the show. And he's giving Billy Bob Thornton relationship advice, and he's like, "You got 4 failed marriages. Like, who are you to talk?" And he's like, "I've got 85 years of how not to do things." I was like, maybe you can take it and learn from it. And I just think that's so powerful. Like that's the most effective thing in masterminds is like I have a bunch of ideas on how I can fix problems, and then the mastermind would be like, "I tried this one, it didn't work. Like maybe it'll work for you, but for me, it didn't."
So it brings up the point: just because something didn't work for somebody else, should you not do it?
No, but I think it offers a little bit of guardrails to just be like, you know, at least I can expect that it didn't work from them, and I know I need to tweak something else. And we talked about the book, The Goal. It's like we're always trying to find those bottlenecks and find those constraints. It's like they gave me a heads up that there's another constraint that I hadn't considered in here, and so if I can figure that out, then this solution might actually work.
So before we started, we were talking about what is the best way of learning masterminds, education, whatever. I said I think masterminds are the best. You said no, we didn't go into it any further than that. Why do you think that mastermind is not the best way to learn from business?
I don't think it's the end all be all. Like I think it's a tool, but I think it's a tool in combination with other things. Like if you're gonna put up a wall and you say that the screwdriver is the best tool to put up a wall, it's like no, it's one of the ones that might be necessary, but to say a paintbrush is the most important tool to put up a wall, it's not true.
Napoleon Hill would disagree with you. So I mean, what's it, Think and Go Rich? I mean, that was his number one thing in that book, preaching masterminds. That's where the word mastermind comes from. But anyhow, I
Yeah.
got off on another tangent.
Well, me and Napoleon Hill can talk about it someday, but I just think that it's a tool. Like if I only did masterminds, like I don't think that I would be as effective as doing masterminds and YouTube University and reading books and one-on-ones with other business owners like that. It's a combination of all these different things, but I think the most important factor into being successful is the adversity through challenges. Like just doing it, taking action, failing, learning how to do it better, and then continuing to drive on, finding a way to just keep going when it sucks. That matters more than a mastermind talking about things or educating yourself and learning about things. It's the action. And just like going to the gym. Like going to the gym, yes, you're building muscle, but the muscle of pushing through when things get hard, I think is more important than the weights you're doing, the exercise you're doing, the routine you have, all that stuff. If you're going to give up on rep 7 when things start to get hard, like you're never going to be successful.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that the ultimate breeding ground for being a good business owner is doing business. But I think of all the tools outside of that, outside of the action, I find that Masterminds is the greatest. I think we're possibly saying the same thing. Um,
But
I'm kind of over the education piece personally. Like I like more Alex Hormozi's framework of let me get the free education. I mean, he has a book and stuff like that, but relatively free versus. I mean, you can go to his place and whatever it costs $10,000 or whatever to sit down with him or his team for 2 days. What I don't know what it costs, but um, that's a little bit different of education. To me, it's more of a mastermind education. But
well, I think I don't know if it's Brad Lee or something like that talking about education, but you brought up Brad Lee, so this probably was fresh in my mind. We talked about how, I mean, there's education, you can take courses, you can do all these things, but there's a certain point that you reach where there is no education on the next steps. Like nobody has reached this feat in this particular sector in this scenario. Like there comes a point where you need to start to build the road in front of you. It's like education, masterminds, the courses, all that stuff. People are telling you this path that might have, trees falling down over it and all this stuff, like, but the path has been paved. Eventually in business you will reach the end of that path where there's no other resources, so you can look at other paths and see what worked for them, but it's not necessarily applicable to you, so you have to start to pave your own path. And that's what I mean about testing and failing.
yeah, I guess maybe my aperture isn't open up enough to agree with that. And what I mean by that is like there's home service companies that are way bigger than mine. And so I have a long way to go. Like talking in, so I'm in the B's before I reach a part that no one's charted. So I guess that's kind of where I disagree. But yeah, maybe I'm just looking at it too simplistically.
Well, I think we completely side railed how we started this podcast, but
I think we hit some of the walls, but we stayed fairly well in lane. So, but yeah, I think learning and growing and moving forward with community. It's interesting because we talk a lot about community and as Christians, like being a community with other Christians. This is just another form of community, mastermind, I guess. And it's at the end of the day, like community might be the most important thing in the world. So
it's a bold statement.
it might be. So on that, I think we'll end it. Thank you, Tanner.
Thanks for coming.